Dude, bruh. Tell me I didn't see what I just saw. Tell me I didn't see what I just saw. Please tell me I didn't see what I just saw. Yeah, it's cooked. It's cooked. It's over, bro. They're crazy. They are crazy. $2.4 million. $2.4 million in y'all.
$2.4 million. Let me say that again so it really sinks in. $2.4 million, that is the absolute maximum salary that WNBA owners put on the negotiating table, a number that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. And what did the Players Association do? They said no. They didn't come back with a let's think about it, and they didn't say we need to negotiate the fine print. They just gave a flat-out no.
These players, we got to get into this. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, and hype the video. Let's get right into things, man. So we know that there was a three-hour-long meeting yesterday where the players thought the WNBA was going to give them some whopping offer, just a whopping of a deal. WNBA owners didn't offer them a damn thing. They told them to hit the bricks. Your main people didn't even show up. We'll get back to you when we get back to you.
Now, to put that refusal into perspective, you have to understand where we are right now. The current maximum salary in the WNBA sits at roughly $250,000. So, the owners essentially offered to multiply the top earning potential by nearly 10 times within a 5-year window, and the union still decided it wasn't enough to make a deal. We really need to stop and unpack what is actually happening in these negotiations. Because this isn't just a contract dispute, this decision could define the trajectory of women's professional basketball for the entire next decade.
Shelburne, she said, adding to Alexa Phillipou's recap from yesterday, ESPN has obtained some information that was presented to players at yesterday's meeting, summarizing the WNBA's current positions. Let's get into it. Here it says WNBA CBA proposal. The goal is a win-win for the CBA. Win-win CBA. Substantially increase player salaries to reflect recent and future business growth, promote business health and profitability, maintain incentives for team and league investment. So that third part, you can't maintain incentive for people to invest if you're not making money.
Here is what makes this situation particularly significant and, frankly, a little terrifying for the business side of things. Everything the WNBA is currently offering, all that money, all that exposure exists largely because of one single person's massive impact on television ratings. Think about this statistic when Caitlin Clark got injured last season and wasn't on the floor. Viewership didn't just dip, it dropped by 55%. We're not talking about a 15% slide or a 25% correction. We are talking about a 55% cratering of the audience.
Okay, I'm gonna zoom in. All right, right now, this is where they at right now, right? Average player salaries, projected player salaries. Okay, boom, in 2025, prior to the CBA, it was 120 grand, right? Then it would go 540 grand, 780 grand, $1 million, right? Okay. Now, this is the Supermax salary. Now, that's with the projections, and if they sign the new CBA, these are the average salaries. So you're looking at $540K for this season, getting up to $780K in 2031.
That is not a dip. That is a total collapse of the product's value. And yet, despite that fragility, the Players Association is negotiating right now as if this recent explosion in league growth is permanent, guaranteed, and spread evenly across the board, rather than being tied directly to specific star power that might not translate to the entire roster if that star isn't playing.
Nerve to think, what y'all think y'all worth 2.4 right now? This is crazy. This is crazy that the owners offered y'all a deal that 5 years from now, the max y'all will be getting 2.4, possibly even more. Okay, y'all be getting 1.3 for this season on a max deal, an average salary of $540,000. They said no. 2031, the average salary will be $1 million. The average. Yeah, these ladies is Delulu. These ladies are Delulu, man. They've lost it. They've lost it, man. $2.4 million turned down. Crazy.
Now, Ramona Shelburne over at ESPN actually got her hands on the documents, the real paperwork that was presented to the players at yesterday's meeting. And when you actually look at the salary projections, the owners weren't playing games here. They laid out an incredibly clear, lucrative path forward. Under this plan, average salaries would jump from about $120,000 in 2025 all the way up to $540,000 this season. And let's be clear, those aren't the maximums. Those are the average salaries.
Rookie scale contracts, upward salary adjustments, which means they would make adjustments to the salaries that rookies are on so they can get more money. Like, it's a win around the board, man. It's a win around the board. Team charter travel, preseason, regular season, and postseason games, first class travel in and out of team market, higher annual salary, more allowable guaranteed contracts per team, additional categories of salary protection, 2 new development player rosters. So they were going to add 2 roster spots for developmental players.
If this deal was signed by 2031, the average player in the league would be making a cool $1 million annually. As for the superstars, the maximum contracts would start at $1.3 million immediately and scale up to that massive $2.4 million figure by the end of the term. This isn't a minor cost of living bump we're talking about. This is a complete, fundamental restructuring of how WNBA compensation works.
Coaches, physical therapists, access to nutritionists. I mean, listen, man, the WNBA players, got to get real, man. These owners have made adjustments. They're looking to do things. The players are kind of like wacky, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. They very wacky for this, man. Higher team contributions to players, 401k retirement, increased performance bonuses for awards and playoff advancement. Additional funding for player programs, access to recently retired players, broader access to family planning benefits, medical benefits, continuation for players waived after mid.
But here is the thing. The salary numbers are only one piece of the puzzle, and arguably not even the most impactful part of what was on the table. The proposal included a laundry list of logistical upgrades, starting with full team charter flights for the preseason, the regular season, and the postseason. It included first-class travel arrangements in and out of team markets. But it went deeper than just travel. They offered 2 additional roster spots specifically designated for developmental players, which is huge because it means those second and third round draft picks wouldn't just automatically get cut and forced to go play overseas anymore. There were increased salary cap exceptions for pregnant players and brand new mandatory team staffing requirements, including physicians, trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, physical therapists, and access to nutritionists. When you look at the list, the owners were effectively addressing nearly every single quality of life complaint the Players Union has raised over the last 3 years.
Programs for marijuana, alcohol abuse, elimination of marijuana testing, 50% of certain team fines donated to PA selected charity, ability to invest and have endorsement deals with sports betting, fantasy, and cannabis companies. I don't think we should do that. It's too much going on. It's too much going on with the gambling stuff. I don't think y'all should do that at all. I think that's a bad idea. The NBA is already trying to move away from a lot of these betting deals that they had because of all the stuff they got going on. Mobile medical record app for players, earlier first payment of annual salary, additional mental health resources, increased promotional and commercial appearance fees, new non-birthing parent leave policy. You ain't even the one pregnant. What do you got to leave for? This is nuts.
It is honestly crazy how detailed this offer was, because they went even deeper into the benefits package. We're talking about higher team contributions to 401k retirement plans, so players can actually retire with money in the bank. They offered increased performance bonuses for awards and advancing in the playoffs. They proposed medical benefits continuation for players who get waived after the midpoint of the season, something that currently doesn't exist and leaves players vulnerable. There were new requirements, allowing young children of players and their caregivers to travel with the team, with the league covering the cost of additional hotel rooms. They threw in a free WNBA League Pass for all players, complimentary All-Star tickets, and this is a big cultural shift. The elimination of marijuana testing combined with new treatment programs for substance issues. On top of that, players would get the ability to invest in and have endorsement deals with sports betting, fantasy sports, and cannabis companies. This wasn't just a salary negotiation, this was a comprehensive overhaul of the entire employee experience. Now, here is where the players' union's position starts to show some cracks and fall apart under scrutiny. The owners explicitly stated that their goal was to provide substantially increased player salaries while maintaining incentives for team and league investment. That third part, the investment incentive, is absolutely critical to understand. You cannot maintain an incentive for billionaires to invest money if the league isn't showing a path to profitability. You have to remember. The WNBA has been operating in the red for the vast majority of its existence, effectively subsidized by the NBA just to keep the lights on. The recent explosion in revenue and viewership created the first real opportunity in history for this league to actually become self-sustaining. But if the players demand a revenue split that pushes the league back into $700 million of debt, no investor in their right mind is going to put money into expansion teams, and no owner is going to spend millions upgrading facilities. The whole growth trajectory stalls out completely. The players' union went into yesterday's meeting with a very specific expectation. They thought the owners were going to cave. They genuinely thought that 3 hours of face-to-face negotiation would result in a massive, sweeter offer, something much closer to the revenue split they've been demanding. Instead, the owners pulled a power move. They showed up, presented the exact same proposal that was already on the table, and essentially said, "This is it. Take it or leave it." To drive the point home, the key decision makers from the ownership groups didn't even attend the meeting personally. They sent representatives who explicitly had no authority to negotiate further. That is a loud and clear message from ownership saying, "We are not the ones who are desperate here. You are." Let's really dig into what the players are actually asking for here, because the details are where the devil lives. The union wants a revenue-sharing model that mirrors the NBA, where players receive approximately 50% of basketball-related income. On the surface, that sounds totally fair. Equal partnership, equal split, right? But you have to look at the context. The NBA is a $75 billion global juggernaut with generational wealth built over decades of history. The WNBA is still essentially a startup that is just now establishing its financial foundation. Applying the same revenue split to a league that is still building its profitability is like asking a brand new tech startup to pay salaries like Google or Apple from day one. The math simply does not work. And when you factor in that the recent revenue spike is directly tied to one player's drawing power rather than broad, league-wide popularity, the financial risk of that 50-50 split becomes even clearer. Here is what makes this distinction so significant. The owners aren't rejecting the concept of revenue sharing in principle, they are rejecting the percentage the players want and the timeline they want it on. They're essentially saying, "We will get there, but we need to build sustainable profitability first," and that is not an unreasonable stance when you consider the actual financial picture. Yes, the WNBA's revenue jumped from approximately $300 million to over $2 billion in media rights deals. That sounds incredible on a headline, until you break down where that money actually goes. You have operating costs for 12 teams, facility rentals, massive travel expenses that are about to increase dramatically with the new charter flights, marketing budgets, league office operations, health and retirement benefits, and yes, the players' salaries. When you run those numbers honestly, the owners are arguing that giving players the percentage they're demanding would put the league back in the red within 2 years. The players' union, of course, disputes this entire narrative. They believe the owners are hiding profits or intentionally undervaluing the league's actual worth to keep salaries down. And look, maybe there is some truth to that. Private businesses don't always open their books completely, and owners always want to maximize leverage. But here is the problem with that argument. If the league was secretly wildly profitable this whole time, why would the owners need to subsidize it through the NBA for decades? Why would multiple WNBA franchises be valued at less than $50 million when NBA teams are selling for billions. The cold, hard financial reality just does not support the union's position that there is a secret pile of gold being hidden from them. Now let's address the elephant in the room that everyone is dancing around, the Caitlin Clark factor. The data is undeniable. When she is playing, viewership spikes through the roof. When she is injured or not playing in primetime slots, the ratings crater. The Indiana Fever's games averaged 3 times the viewership of non-Fever games last season. That isn't a slight against the talent of other players. That is just the cold data of audience interest, and it creates an incredibly complicated situation for negotiation. The owners are essentially saying, "We're offering you generational wealth based on growth that might not continue if the specific stars driving that growth leave, get injured, or retire." The players are countering with, "We deserve this money regardless of individual star power, because we collectively are the product." Both positions have merit, but only one of them is backed by the requirements of financial sustainability. Think about the nightmare scenario for the owners. What happens if the players get their demanded revenue split, and then Caitlin Clark suffers a career-ending injury next season? Or what if she decides the scrutiny isn't worth it and takes her talents overseas, where she could make huge money in a less toxic environment? Or what if the novelty of WNBA basketball just wears off for the casual fans who tuned in specifically for her? In any of those scenarios, the revenue drops like a rock, but the salary commitments would remain fixed. The league would go back into massive debt, expansion plans would get canceled, and teams would likely fold. That isn't speculation. That is basic business reality. The owners are trying to protect against that scenario by offering substantial increases tied to continued growth rather than guaranteed percentages that could bankrupt the league if the growth stalls. The players' union calls that greed, but you have to ask, is it greed to want your business to remain solvent? Is it greed to say, "We'll pay you more as we make more, but we need to ensure we're actually making more first"? Here is another angle of the deal that simply isn't getting enough attention: the developmental roster spots. The owners offered to add 2 spots per team specifically for developing young players. That is 24 additional jobs across the league. That means 24 players who currently get cut in training camp and have to go play in Turkey or Spain would instead stay in the WNBA, practice with their teams, develop their skills under professional coaching, and potentially become rotation players. The union rejected that. They effectively rejected the creation of 24 new jobs for their own future members because the overall revenue split wasn't what they wanted. Think about what that says to the 2nd and 3rd round picks coming out of college who are about to get cut in training camp because there isn't room for them. The charter flight situation is equally telling about the disconnect here. Players have been demanding charter flights for years, citing safety concerns, recovery needs, and competitive fairness. The owners finally agreed full charter flights for preseason, regular season, and postseason. That is a massive operational expense that will cost tens of millions of dollars annually. And the players' union essentially said, "Not good enough, we want more money too." At some point in a negotiation, you have to acknowledge when your core demands are actually being met. It's the same story with the benefits package, medical coverage extension, family travel accommodations, retirement contributions, mental health resources, nutritionist access, improved training staff requirements. These are real, tangible improvements to player welfare and career longevity. All of these benefits are being dismissed by the union leadership because the top-line salary numbers aren't high enough for their liking. But here's the thing. All of those benefits have significant monetary value. When you actually add up the cost of charter flights, extended medical coverage, family travel, and enhanced retirement contributions, that is easily another $100,000 per player in effective compensation. But because it doesn't show up in the salary line on a spreadsheet, it gets ignored. The marijuana testing elimination is particularly interesting in this regard. The owners agreed to stop testing for marijuana completely and create treatment programs for substance issues instead of punishments. That is a significant progressive policy shift that players have wanted for years. It acknowledges that marijuana use shouldn't be treated the same as performance-enhancing drugs, and it shows the owners are willing to evolve on social issues. Yet, it got essentially zero credit in the union's response. Now let's talk about the timeline, because this is a major friction point. The owners are projecting these salary increases over 6 years, reaching that 2.4 million figure by 2031. The union wants that number right now, or at least within the next 2 years. But rapid salary inflation without corresponding proven revenue growth is exactly how businesses fail. The owners are saying, we need to see sustained revenue increases before we commit to maximum salaries of that magnitude. That isn't stalling tactics, that is fiscal responsibility. If you promise money you don't have yet, and the money doesn't come in, everyone loses their job. And here is something nobody is really discussing: what happens to the mid-tier and role players in the union's preferred model. If you push maximum salaries to $4 or $5 million immediately, teams will have to allocate a much larger percentage of their cap space to just their top 2-star players. That means there is significantly less money available for the 6th through 12th players on the roster. You could end up with a more extreme version of the NBA salary distribution, where superstars make $50 million and role players make the minimum. Is that really better for the majority of the union members? The owner's proposal actually creates a more balanced salary structure. By targeting average salaries of $1 million, it means the middle-class players, the solid rotation pieces who aren't all-stars, are making real money, building real wealth, and not getting squeezed out by supermax contracts. But the union leadership seems focused entirely on the top-line max number, not the overall distribution, and that strategy might actually hurt their own members in the long run. So where does this all leave us? The players' union has now rejected 2 comprehensive proposals. The owners have made it crystal clear that they are not negotiating further until the union comes back with realistic demands. The current collective bargaining agreement expires soon, which means we could legitimately be looking at a work stoppage, a lockout, or a strike happening right when the WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth. Would be absolutely catastrophic for the league's momentum. And here is the final piece that makes this so frustrating to watch. The owners gave the players almost everything they asked for except the specific revenue percentage, everything. Charter flights, medical benefits, family accommodations, developmental rosters, retirement contributions, facility improvements, staff requirements. They addressed every single quality of life issue and offered to quintuple salaries. And it wasn't enough. At what point does the players' union have to acknowledge that their position isn't just ambitious, it's unrealistic? At what point do they recognize that killing the golden goose to get more eggs faster is a bad strategy? Because that is exactly what is happening here. The WNBA has a chance to build sustainable generational growth, but it requires patience and partnership. Right now, the union is choosing confrontation. So the question becomes, will the players' union reconsider before they force a shutdown that damages everything they've built? Or are we about to watch the WNBA squander its best opportunity for long-term success because the union overplayed its hand? Drop your take in the comments, because this decision is going to define the league for the next decade.